this one, and then we go get on real bad. West Indian women, raise your hand. Hear this. Devastation and destruction from ever since time began has been inflicted time and time and again by man against fellow man. Yet man wouldn't learn from history. It makes him more violent, producing deadly weaponry with nothing but evil intent. So the war could never be over. Peace will never be seen, long as man in his quest for power keep destroying fellow human beings. Fellow human beings. I'm telling you, nobody, oh nobody, when you really think of it, nobody wins a war, because the agony of defeat will linger. Nations still hating one another, and superpowers, they're looking for more power. As long as violence and aggression still dwell in the hearts of man, brother, the war will go on. It cannot be won. No, 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 the war will go on. It cannot be won. Fallout from war is chaos, plenty agony, plenty pain. Economies left in shambles that may never rise up again. Collapse of the money system, disruption of foreign trade, people turning against their leaders for the blunders that they have made. Environmental pollution, radiation taking its course, and the thousands that die in battle. Oh, what a waste of human resource. Of course, look, I'm telling you, nobody, oh, nobody. But when you really look at it, nobody wins a war. The brutal clash of ideologies, carnage and social anarchy, and life reduced to pitiful dimensions. The falling back of progress and growth for entire generation. Sister, it cannot be won. The war will go on. No, 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 the war will go on. It cannot be won. Hear the music. War is just like a racket. It pays dividends for a few. But what does it profit the masses? I mean laymen like me and you. While the leaders playing their chess games, using the masses as pawn with political propaganda, the massacre still goes on. The soldiers, they never started, but they keep their lives easily, while the leaders are in a safe place working out strategies. So you see, I know nobody, oh nobody. But when you really look at it, nobody wins a war. It has stained the passage of history with the blood of the weak and the mighty. Great, great cultures vanish completely. Look, war can create and destroy political boundaries as it goes on. Brother, the war will go on. It cannot be won. No, 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 the war will go on. It cannot be won. The object of war is simple. Just conquer and take over. It doesn't matter how many people get wiped out in the massacre. The enemy must be vanquished. The battle has to be won. But the conflict will never be over, cause the agony lingers on. There'll always be more dictators, more Hitlers, more Saddam Husseins. And with the lunatics in power, it will just start all over again. And again, I know nobody, oh nobody. But when you really look at it, nobody wins a war. We need a spiritual revolution to stop this brutish aggression. Always peace in the world will always be out of our hands. As long as the quest for wealth and power still live in the hearts of man, sister, the war will go on. It cannot be won. No, 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 the war will go on. It cannot be won. The war will go on. Peace in the world.
The war will go on.
We need a spiritual revolution.
The war will go on.
Lord, put a hand, save the children.
The war will go on.
Man fighting against man.
The war will go on. What we fighting for? The war will go on. What we fighting for?
I'm coming back.
The war will go on. What we fighting for? The war will go on. Are you ready, people? Not don't say yes, say yo-ho. Right about now, ladies and gentlemen, we continue with royalty. And I'd like to bring on stage a man, no stranger. Many, many times, Road March King, Trinidad and Tobago, all over the world. A grand entertainer. Would you please welcome on this pre-Mother's Day show, let's hear it for Austin Lion, better known as Super. Tonight is Calypso night. Tonight is Calypso night. Raise your hand and we'll have it. Hey, hey. Tonight is Calypso night. Tonight is Calypso night. So let we jam, 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 jam. Jam, we jamming on the moon. We jam on the moon. Hey, hey. Yes, we jamming. I want everybody, say hey, yeah, 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 all the mothers. Meeting people is so wonderful. We can hardly wait to meet someone like you. Baby, just to give happy Mother's Day. Right now, help him keep my love in existence. Hey, raise your hand. Oh, today's Mother's Day. Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Like for instance, meeting strange faces like you. Oh yeah. Where you need assistance urgently. Oh yeah. There is no other proper way. Right now. All you've got to do
Yes, Super Blue. Little Shango there to start us off. You heard the Shango be there straight from West Africa. And after all these decades and centuries, we still hold strong. Hello, hello, meeting people, strange places, Austin Lyons, the king of road march, giving us hello, the Shango Beetle. Boop, boop. If you ever thought that you were not African, those of you who came across the Middle Passage, so of us, and survive until they say, hello, 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 hello. And before that, of course, a song for the times, the war will go on, the futility of war, singing Sandra, the futility of war. Nobody wins a war. Nobody wins a war. And the drums of war are beating at our doorsteps. And what can we do? What can we do? What can we do? We have a history of anti-war. You go back to Jimmy Cliff, Vietnam. That's way back in the 1960s. Coming right through to singing Sandra, the war will go on. The futility of war. Doing it as we do it in the Caribbean, using song and dance to tell the story, to protest, to rebuke, and to prophesize. The drums of war, of course, the United States and Venezuela. We have talked about it on this program. My position is very clear. Back in time, I might have taken an ideological anti-imperialist position, whatever. And I suppose at an ideological level, one is still there. You can't not be there if you are from these tiny acres, as David Rudder said. These tiny acres of confusion. You can't not be anti-imperialist, but the fact of the matter is, I am care about Venezuela right now. Venezuela is laying claim to 2/3 of our territory. Venezuela has been good to the Eastern Caribbean, Red Petro-Caribbean, and so on. That has to be acknowledged. But Venezuela is pointing its guns at Guyana. It's saying that if the Americans invade them, then they are going to shoot at us. You see, we have to ask ourselves, what are our interests? And our interest is to try to avoid war. We're going to be cleaned up, cleaned up. The actors, the United States, China, Russia, they got nuclear weapons. Venezuela don't have nuclear weapons, but they got a big army. We can barely defend ourselves against people walking about with bombs in plastic bags. And at some point, we in the Caribbean have to say, it's our interest. We don't need this. Can you carry out your foreign policy and leave us out of it? Leave us out of it. That's my position. I know some people are saying, invading another country is wrong. Of course it's wrong. But we're not here to bat for Venezuela. We have to find a foreign policy that balances our survival with whatever principle. Because don't talk about sovereignty in real international. I will ask Jeffrey about it. He's here. Sovereignty from an international relations standpoint in this cruel world, sovereignty of a Guyana or a Trinidad and so on, doesn't mean the same thing as sovereignty for the United States and Britain and the big countries. You see? And so in these times. But the war will go on. It cannot be won. The futility of war. Singing Sandra. Hello to all of you. Hello to all of you. Beverly Fraser, who is watching. I don't know where Beverly is watching from. We have people here from Conyers, Georgia. I have some friends out that way. Conyers, Georgia. Lynette, good evening, Lynette. I think Lynette out there in Conyers, and Hazel in Georgia. Maybe not in Conyers, but when I was there the other day, they took me out the side, out to Conyers side, and Desiree, and all the wonderful ladies there who mobilized during the election. And I passed through there for a day. Good evening to all of you who join us from Georgia. Please share the link. Dr. Henry Jeffrey is here tonight. I see you all are massing in numbers, and that's what I like to see. I know we have been up and down in the sense that, we haven't had regular shows, but we are doing well. This is the third show for the week. I hope we can make it to 5 for the week and satisfy our quota. Good evening to all of you. Good night to those of you who are joining us from England and Europe. Good night to you all, and welcome to Politics 101. Lots to talk about. Terrorism in Guyana. All kinds of things you're hearing. Drug smuggling, and who gonna sing for who and sing on who and who not. And of course the saga in our Supreme Court. It's so shameful. I know last night I ended vexed, because the I-pass, man, is the I-pass. The I-pass, you I-pass the lady Janet Cummins, shove the lady out, get, yeah, and then you're manipulating the other lady. Because you pretended that you like she, but for 8 years or more, you keep she acting because you want to get rid of the other lady. And now you get rid of the other lady, you say, take the position, and you bring in your person. And then you said to Norton, come. Yeah. Rubber stamp this thing for me. Guyanese, you gotta stop taking plea. You gotta stop taking plea, because you are taking plea all the time. But we're going to be talking about those issues and more with Dr. Henry Jeffrey, who's here. Jeffrey don't hold back. So those of you who messaged me when you didn't see Dr. Jeffrey last night in his usual Tuesday night slot, what happened with Dr. Jeffrey? You are keeping count of the thing, right? And I like that. Welcome to all of you from Linden. Welcome to all of you from Trinidad and Tobago. Trinidad and Tobago taking what a stance. What a stance Trinidad and Tobago is taking on this story, and rebuking CARICOM, saying CARICOM is not reliable. In the old days when Jamaica broke away from the Federation, 1958, 1962, and Sparrow Singh, on the Federation. Jamaica broke up the Federation. And I always remind people that before Jamaica break the Federation up, Guyana said no Federation under the PPP of Jagan, because they said Federation would mean that their supporters would be a minority in a Caribbean government. They didn't take us in that direction. It caused the second split because the Sidney King and Rory Westmus and Martin Carter left as a result of the failure of the PPP to join the Federation. So Guyana stayed out of the story. Jamaica broke it up in 1962. And Trinidad, well, at the time, Eric Williams, the Trinidad and Tobago Prime Minister, when Jamaica left, he said 1 from 10 leaves nothing. Well, it seems now is 15 away in CARICOM? I wonder if we're going to say 1 from 15 leaves nothing, because Trinidad, under the Kamala Besessar government, I'm telling you, they, in a way, don't be surprised at the UNC, because remember at one time when there was an Indo-Guyanese government in Suriname, one in Guyana and Panday in Trinidad, there was talk about a regional integration body of those three countries, three East Indian-led governments. Rex Nettleford once said, the East Indian has to become West Indian, just as the African became West Indian. The indigenous people became West Indian. Even the white people who come here and decide to stay here, they have to be West Indian. And when you see the moves by some of these governments in Guyana and Trinidad, you wonder whether they indeed, I think East Indians, for the most part, have become West Indian. The West Indianization may be a little bit slower than the other ethnic groups because, they came after enslavement and they came with vestiges of India that they can still hold on to. So the process may be different, slower, and so on. But you wonder whether their political leadership is invested in integration. Good evening to you and welcome to Politics 101. Dr. Jeffrey's ready. You are ready. You're here in your hundreds. Good evening to all of you. Welcome again to Politics 101. Dr. Jeffrey. Dr. Jeffrey, good evening.
Good evening, David. How are you? You are in politics now full time by all accounts. Yes.
You were telling me they said two groups of people or two professions if you just live long.
And be happy. Politicians and priests.
Politicians and priests. My only ambition when I was a boy was to become a priest. I never wanted, and I never thought I would become a politician or a political activist, you call it. But no, so I dabbled with the priesthood and dabbling with politics. So now I want to live long and be
longevity. Longevity is there.
Dr. Jeffrey, you obviously have been paying attention to the drums of war in the southern Caribbean. Yeah. There seemed to be a collision of fight against narcotics, regime change in Venezuela. Here we are again, having to deal with the reality of geographically in the quote-unquote backyard of the greatest country on earth. And we are caught in this. This time we have oil. This time the Venezuela claim to our land is live. We are front and center of this thing. The Americans have asked the Grenadians to put up satellite equipment there to ostensibly fight drugs. We in Guyana, like most Caribbean countries, we tend to pay attention to our local politics and not as much to international politics. But the drums of war are being beaten there. And then we had this explosion on Sunday night. And there's talk about terrorism and linkage of the accused to Venezuela and all of that. Bring all of that together because I know part of your training and when you taught had to do with international politics. Talk to us.
Well, David, they said the last time that democratic countries ever fought nearly fight each other again since about the 18th century was when America and Britain nearly go to war about Venezuela. You remember? The Venezuelans claim that the Essequibo is theirs, and the Americans say, well, here what's going to happen. This Monroe Doctrine existed since, 1820, something like that. Yeah. And so the Venezuelan says, the American says, well, the way to end this would be to set up some kind of a commission, some kind of arbitration, and the British refused. Remember, the British refused. And so the Americans were about set to go to war with Britain on the Venezuela border dispute. And and the British suddenly agreed to the tribunal that ended up giving and we ended up with the present border. So, and we were talking, well, not began, but you was thinking about wars. And I said to myself, that came to mind when the song was on, that war is bad for you. But there is a statement too in a political arena that said the people always have to keep their powder dry. Freedom is not built by not fighting for it. You can be living quite free right now, and you can live even in a democracy, but there comes a point that you have to say to yourself, I have to stand up, or all my rights would be taken away from me. Well, so what should the South Africans have done? What should Mandela have done? Not gone to war? That is what he should have done. And let apartheid reign. Isn't he supposed to fight apartheid? He didn't fight apartheid to set up apartheid. He fought apartheid to introduce democracy, but apartheid had to be fought. So, this thing that yes, war by definition, anytime you got to go shooting people and killing people is a bad thing. But at the same time, you have to put it in context. What should the Ukrainians do? Not fight back? I mean, for me, the question has always been, am I fighting for freedom? If I am fighting for my freedom, I have a right to go to war for it. What should the British have just laid down and leave everything for Hitler to run roughshod over anybody? What the world would have looked like today? The autocracies are taking over right now. As a matter of fact, are we all to sit down and let them take over? Right here, you have an autocracy. It's not Jeffrey says so. It's the index in the best place in the world. This is not a democracy. It's an autocracy. So what are people supposed to do? Not rebel? Essentially, they should. How you decide to rebel is another story altogether. And that depends upon the space you're given to make your demands and so on. So I believe, for a start, that you will not wars, but what protects your right to run your own life and develop and contribute to the development of a country along the line that you believe to be good is only at the end of the day your capacity to stop those who actually want to do otherwise. So effectively, in a sense that I'm saying, yes, war, any killing of people is bad, but war is not a willy-nilly killing of people. It is, I'm saying it to you, you are destroying my freedom, and you are saying, well, to hell with you. Well, what else should I do? Now, I put it like that in the context of what's taking place around us today. You said that we have terrorism. Well, there's somebody, we don't know who sent that man, to be truthful. Whether or not he was sent by this group in Venezuela, we have no idea what he was doing, because we have not been told by the authorities who have captured him and said he pleaded guilty. They are not saying what he, maybe it can be a secret, what he has pleaded guilty to, or anything like that. We know nothing. I can make a case that it could be sent by any of the groups. This Solidario or whatsoever he's a member of, they are tied in with the government at some points, at other points not. There are other rivals fighting there. So you don't have know anything about what's taking place. All you know, there's a man came here with and placed the bomb and killed some people and he killed that little girl. What he might consider as collateral damage because he didn't intend to do that. But at the same time, that is the reality that we know. I can't make a statement of why he's here. I can make a lot of speculations about who can send him and who can't send him, and that might not sound too nice. But at the end of the day, we have it. The government should give us more information about what is taking place. Indeed, I can make a case maybe that the government has sent him. You understand me? So, but you don't want to go there. Because I'm saying, you were talking about Kamala, I can almost say, hey, he comes here to rile us up so we can take the American side. And I don't think so. I don't know. I am saying this kind of speculation you have to do. If I was in government, if you sit down in a cabinet with Burnham, Jagan, and them, you got to come up with all of those thoughts. But we don't know. And I don't know what is going on here. All I know, he has committed a crime and he will have to pay for that crime in one way or another. And that is where I am with that, a question of who's here. We need much more information before we can go down any road to make any statement about what is taking place.
Dr. Henry Jeffrey here, giving us a nuanced position on war, philosophical, we may say, and of course that is what we have to try to do as teachers, is to try to problematize some of these things and not necessarily simplify them, but to problematize them. And I do, from a philosophical standpoint, understand what Dr. Jeffries is saying. In fact, he's broadening the definition of war from war between countries to war within the context of freedoms and rights and so forth. And so, given, if we may call a broad definition of war, whereas Singing Sancho was talking about the narrow definition of war between so-called nation states. Dr. Jeffrey, I want to take you back to what's happening in the Caribbean, the Southern Caribbean, the United States. Why now? Why now? Why the United States is interested in action in the Southern Caribbean / the Northern Latin American, South American continent? Why now? What is it about now that brings this kind of action?
Well, David, in this sense, I'm pretty simplistic. The president of America, Mr. Trump, was there telling much how many wars he has solved and he has done and he has stopped this war, and which most people will say, well, that might seem like wishful thinking because even the war in Palestine has not been solved. Now, this, first of all, politically, the problem in Venezuela is a big problem for Floridians. You understand? They want Maduro gone. And the Republicans are Floridians for the most part. Well, the people in Florida support more or less the Republicans. And the result is that Trump has, as a Republican, if he can get rid of Maduro, would have done something that the Biden administration was unable to do, in a more diplomatic way. Now, that would be a little big boost for him as going into the midterm elections. So that's an important aspect to me, that he has taken on this to this extent, because Biden was trying, but you wouldn't have gotten them going and sending all these bombers all over. But Donald Trump seemed to want to send a message to people that he is willing to go to that length to get what he wants in the international community when it suits him. Of course, you see the problem we face in Ukraine. He's not doing that in Ukraine for one reason or another. He's saying that the Europeans should be paying their fair share and all that. But when you look at international politics, America is about, the GDP of America is about 30% of world GDP. When you add all the other European GDP, America as the leader, when they walk into a meeting, they used to walk into a meeting with almost 60, maybe more, 60% of world GDP. It's everything. When Trump walks into a meeting, he's walking in with 30% of GDP, because now the Europeans got to pay, and they're making all sorts of arrangements to try to protect themselves. He's going in, and the Chinese have 20% of 20 trillion. I think world GDP must be 130 trillion, 20 and 10 trillion or something like that. Chinese got 20 trillion, America got 30 trillion, the other European countries got another 30. So he was walking in as a man of great power and so on. That's why today you have Venezuela, Chinese shipping Russian warships and all sorts of coming in there, because it is not the same as when the leader of the Western world walked in with 60% of GDP. It isn't. The difference in Venezuela, that said, remember, all of the Western world agreed that Maduro should take a walk. After all this, he lost an election, and they're willing to live with the PPP because they say, well, at least on election day, people go and vote for them. They're not saying, what we have here is democratic. They're not saying that at all. They're saying that, on election day, most people went and voted for him, for the PPP and all that. They're saying on election day, Maduro did not, and he's, therefore he's usurping the government and give them a right, a duty to stand up and try to protect the Venezuelan people who are all over the world. Guyana, for instance, have just come from the road, and chaps are saying, well, this place is full of Venezuelans. And we are talking, we're making a lot of noise about American do this and American do that and American do it. But we are in no position for decades to do it to ourselves. No position whatsoever. This thing about sovereignty has always been a little bit of a joke. If you go to international meetings, you're a small country, even you are not going to get the best time to perform or to deliver no speech. The Americans and the bigger chaps gets it. It doesn't matter what you do. Sovereignty can only be structurally legally supported if you got the international government. You ain't got no international government. You got a whole lot of laws, but the Americans themselves, only the thing with the Seychelles the other day, we have gone to the Court of Justice, the International Court of Justice about Venezuela, but the American and the British themselves the other day, when the Court of Justice says something about Chagos Island, some one of them said, no, they're not accepting it.
The question of
So
sovereignty.
this whole talk about being sovereign and so on, I mean, it's nice. It's the idea, it's good, but you got to have military power to back it up. For decades, they're saying, oh, there are all these drug lords all over, particularly in Bolivia state or just over there. And nobody can do anything about it. And therefore, you have to sit down and ask yourself, well, what's it all about? This sovereignty seems not to be able to stop them.
So,
Dr.
Jeffrey, the question of sovereignty, you're quite correct. I remember 20 years ago or so, going to Caribbean conferences, and some of the older scholars argued very strongly against this notion that we are sovereign. And those of us who were younger felt we opposed that view because we grew up post-independence, and we grew up on the Burnhams and Eric Williams and Manleys and so on the international scene, fighting for new world order, new world information order, new world economic order. And so the notion of sovereignty appealed to us in a certain kind of way. But I have to say that as I have matured, I've come around to understanding the argument of limited sovereignty or tenure sovereignty. The issue is for us in the Caribbean here. I'm asking you this: is there anything we can do? If America wants to come into the territory and use us as a jumping off point to take out Maduro and others, we say we are calling for a zone of peace, but does that mean anything?
Yeah, well, it means, at least it sends the notion of what it is, how we like to. It's like sovereignty itself. It says, I mean, we are sovereign. We would like to live as sovereign nations, make our own decision. But as you just heard about war, these things happen. You don't have the power to deal with it themselves. They can leave. They can be left there to fester. All these drug dealing things can be left there to fester. They have been, they were being left there to fester. They have been coming in Guyana, being in Trinidad. They have been thing to fester. So in a sense, the American has a point that, look, and they're coming to my country. That's all they're saying. These people are ending up in my country. I have a major problem. When I see people blowing up people and all of that, I said this without any judicial or anything. I think it's totally wrong. But on the other hand, I said to myself, are these people warned as they're going? Are you just coming in a plane and blow them up? I have not heard anybody saying that these people are told to turn back. Stop. Turn back. Now, that is also an important issue because you know that that America is out there. They're saying when they tell you stop, we suspect, that's what they're saying. We suspect you of carrying drugs. Stop, turn back. Do they send a message out or a thing like that to tell these people, and then they continue on? All of that will be involved in mitigating circumstances. We said to you, we have thing as a drug dealers are going to in our country every minute. And we are saying to you, we suspect you of drug dealing. If you do not stop, you'll take certain hard things. And they just go on. I have not heard or read anything saying that they are warned of this in any way. And I think that's an important element when we are talking about going killing people and you're shooting up boats. But as everything I've said here, if you notice, it's always a bit never conclusive. Because effectively, you know that the drug dealers got to be stopped. You have not been able to stop them in decades. Somebody else, somebody else is coming to try and stop them. Are they coming to stop them because they are drug dealers, or are they wanting to stop them because of the Venezuela regime? Well, they are claiming that Maduro itself is a drug dealer and all of that. So this is a complicated issue, but and so they have to be dealt with in that kind of context.
Dr. Jeffrey, let's move from narco trafficking and go to drugs, gold smuggling, because we in Guyana, we are embroiled in that.
Yeah.
We're one of our leading politicians, the incoming opposition leader, has been indicted by the United States on gold smuggling. He hinted that the government itself may have facilitated or in some way involved. The leader of the government, well, certainly one of them, Mr. Jack Dew, said, well, there may be some civil society people involved. The former head of the gold board is involved, and he ordered the police and the GRA and others to launch an investigation into gold smuggling. Are we being taken for a ride by all of these politicians? Yes, Lord.
These people were Mohammed's friends. People must have complained to them 100 times about Mohammed, even if they themselves were not involved. I don't know who was involved. I'm saying an investigation should have been launched against him a long time ago. Long time. They are his friends. They are hearing this. So you didn't have to wait for no Americans to come and do anything and all of this. You should have launched the investigation along. Don't tell me you weren't hearing all these things. They were there. The Americans said they spent 2 years doing all sorts of investigation. They should have had sufficient information, at least to say, let us look at this matter, but nothing came up until the Americans came and threw everything. So I mean, in that sense, yes, it couldn't possibly have not been at least suspected. And that's all you need, a suspect. You're not charging anybody, but you're putting the police or whosoever. But the police themselves seem to have been involved in
There you go. That was going to be my follow-up question.
In all sort of confusion. So that is the so-called democracy in which we live. I mean, you're right. I mean, that is it. You know.
Dr. Jeffrey, I have been listening, sometimes talking to mostly African Guyanese on this issue. As you know, at the election, African Guyanese split their votes between the APNU and WIN. And I sometimes see the torture some of them, especially those who may have voted for WIN. Really, you know, downplaying the fact that the WIN leader is indicted, and playing up the fact that the PPP are the real gold smugglers in that they are the ones who have taken the country down that road. And I say torture because I see the torture. On the one hand, I don't think that they are supporting gold smuggling, but on the other hand, the visceral dislike for the PPP seems to take precedence over the fact that Mohammed was friends with the PPP, and that the crimes that he is being accused of was as a result of his friendship with the PPP. Talk to that torture among those mainly African Guyanese who would have voted for Mohammed.
David, you have The PPP over 20 years have impoverished black people deliberately. I wrote a book on it. You have done some ads for that right here. So they have done that deliberately. They have done that by keeping wages just below, always just by the inflation rate, 5%, 4%, 3%. Jagan had always said, and that's why I said, you mustn't say, you can't just say PPP. PPP different at different times. Just like people say PNC is not the same group because they are different. Jagan used to say that public servants must be paid the inflation rate and plus any a growth in the economy, he's supposed to say, and real growth in the economy. So if the inflation rate was 5 and real growth was 6, then maybe they should get 11, 10. I don't know. Yeah, but that was it. When they came and they getting to this thing of paramountcy, they suspended collective bargaining altogether. So there's no, and that's one of the things you people got to bring back. They suspended collective bargaining. Even the last time you see the torture and torment, you had to go through to get collective bargaining with the judge having to set up committees with the union man now ended up on a PPP platform and PPP, all of that. The leader,
the teachers union.
Yes. So you see what's happening. They have used those kind of the instruments they have to actually impoverish black people. You look, the Indians were agriculturists. The black people had a whole lot of technical colleges in their community. Burnham start with community high school, then he set up PICs, practical instruction centers. See where they are now. They are saying they are building them back. Why destroy them in the first place? Black people used to be the people that do the technician work and all sides for agriculture. But PPP did it. As I said, I think on this program before, look, athletics. The PPP carried the athletic track where at Lenora. They all weather track. Why would you do that? Why? Is Lenora now over there?
Yeah, so, Lenora, yes.
Yeah. Who in Lenora? That track should be in there. It shouldn't even be at Linden, although that might be more ideal place. It got to be around Georgetown where Africans around this world have done well. You take the only all-weather track you have and put it in Lenora. Yeah, I mean, and that's only the tip of the iceberg. That's why I always said, and I expect from you and people in Parliament, that you must have an ethnic disparity analysis of what has taken place. People will get blamed if you do a thing like that, but in order to rectify the situation, you have to get, it's an important thing, an ethnic disparity analysis. Britain doing it. Australia, I think, done it. So, I mean, you can do that because these people were badly. So now we are talking about Mohammed. Now that's where we come to Mohammed. Because the PPP, you maybe get it from the PPP too. The PPP, assuming that they are not being coerced, which nothing has stopped me from believing that so far. But the PPP, he must be saying, the PPP had them as a quoting and say, well, if we sufficiently impoverish African people, they're going to vote for us. They didn't vote, given what happened to Mohammed, they didn't vote for the PPP, but they voted for him because he was willing to pay. There was a whole lot of buying votes and selling votes. And the people would prefer not vote for the PPP, period, because they know what has been going on. And so they went and they essentially vote for the PPP got 1,000 more votes in Linden than they got the last time. And you got to do this analysis from the what is really what should be the voters list. Don't worry, that's 700 or something thousand, because then when you go from there, it look like a lot of people did not vote.
Right.
You know, and they say, oh, black people still and all that. No. If you go to the 515,000 that's supposed to be there, and you know that the Indian vote solidly for the PPP, they are 40% of the population, and of course, they always get a good deal of Amerindian vote proportionately. You will see that the PPP has, that's what they have gotten to get to the 50%. And because of the split in the PNC, and a few black might have stayed home. So we have to be very, very careful that this is not about race and racism. It's about justice.
Yeah.
It's about justice. If you can't understand this, well, you are not on my side. It's about justice. I'm not racist. I don't know. I joined PPP when how many Indians joined PNC? You fought for the PPP on the road and maybe get locked up all on the road with the PPP. So how many are these people just tell you, you're a racist? Go and join another party at any one of time, any point of time. You mentioned the thing about Jagan and
the Federation.
The Federation. But he couldn't do it because in 1951, he already wrote a letter to the goddamn communists telling them that he going to carry Guyana and the Caribbean into the communist world. So how he going to, he wanted them, it's around 1951 he did it. So he already committed to the communists. We didn't know that. I used to always tell Shadi all the time, I knew long before I became minister that he's a communist and people right to keep him out of government. I've told him that all the time. To the point where the Berlin Wall fell, and I met him. I went to see Boise Ramkar in Freedom House. So he's always gaff and maybe buy some books or something. And I saw him and I said, your time came, your time come. He said, what are you talking about? I said, but you're irrelevant now. The Berlin Wall fall, communism finish. He said, Jeffrey, bring some people by my house and we talk about it. And I took persons by my house who are still alive today. I took them and we sit down. I said, your time has arrived to become President of Ghana because you are totally ideologically irrelevant. So Guyana is it's a small country, but it's very complicated. It's complicated. Yeah, it's complicated. It's when people run out and say, Borno was a dictator, Borno. If he wasn't a dictator, you might have ended up in some gulag. As they said about, as they say, if they weren't Lenin, they would be another Lenin. Well, that is the thing Barnum was placed upon because Barnum, they want Chinese people. Barnum, they were at Park Hotel. Barnum did not wish to join. Indeed, he tried to avoid it, but they weren't Barnum. They had to be somebody because the British would not, and the Americans would not have allowed the PPP to take the whole Caribbean into no communist camp. Period. They offered Jagan shared governance. They offered him. Maybe Guyana can tell you that. And he said, no, but how are we going to do it since 1951? Nobody don't know. Most of the people in the PPP did not know that they sent that note. I didn't know, but I can see from his behavior that he was a whole communist. So I said, that didn't stop me because I got tendency towards Marxism and so on too. But so he became my friend. But the point is, he was a communist, and they were not going to allow him to run Guyana. No, it is. And what you're going to have, you had a majority of Indian votes that were not going to be moving. So, Borno, that's what you end up with.
That's
And I
what you
see,
end up with.
yes, that's what you end up with. So if the Borno was bad, is they created Borno?
Dr. Henry Jeffrey here tonight. Good evening to all of you who are joining us. Good evening to my friend Lach Min Aziz from West Bobis Boshalat, West Bobis, and all the people there in that part of our country. Good evening to all of you. Dr. Jeffrey and I are wrapping here, and of course, we are going between history and the present and throwing a little bit of philosophy and so on. Jeffrey, one had hoped that the elections have come and gone. The part of the PNC base voted for win, and we have moved on. But the lambasting of Norton seems not to stop. I floated the thesis before election that I think there is a concerted effort by forces close to the PNC, inside the PNC, and of course outside of the PNC, and maybe internationally, to really get rid of the PNC as we know it. I don't think anything else explains the fact that the PNC was beaten at the election. It's now the number 3 force in parliament, but yet this attack on Norton continues. Norton must go. Norton must this. Norton must that. Weighing on my thesis that there seems to be a concerted plan to get rid of the PNC as we know it.
The PNC, it came out, the history of the PNC is one about democratic centralism. It's just like the PPP. Mm-hmm. What happened to Norton couldn't happen in the PPP because there is no democracy there. They go and they do all sorts of maneuvers and put whoever they want. Now, so effectively, what particularly the old guards, I'm telling you, in my view, I don't think that is they want to get rid of the PNC, but they wanted to get rid of Norton. And they wanted to get rid of Norton for many reasons. But one important one, apparently, remember Norton was the manager for Carl Greenwich.
Yeah.
When Carl Greenwich ran. And when apparently all sorts of jiggery-poogery happened, and they suddenly not Greenwich didn't want to win anymore, but Granger. Now Norton was a manager for Granger at a point of time, and quite a raucous establishment. There is not forgiven for that particular thing. But when that is the problem with democracy, if you start with primaries, remember they started with open primaries?
Yeah.
I mean, if you start with primaries and all that, it sure means your democracy, you are trying to be a democratic party. You got to live with what the democracy throws up. You got to come with him, work with him, and so on. But there are, God was whispering behind. He's back against Norton at about 2 weeks. Quite a few of them gone over to win, almost become the PNC. Oh God! I mean, when you put all those things together, you see that what's happened to North is not true. My own just saying, I don't bother. for a thing like that to be meaningful, it has to happen in about 3 years. It got to happen about 3 times, about 15 years for you to tell me that wind makes anything inroads. It happened for a very long time. So effectively, what Norton was fighting is part of the PNC and the PPP. And this is the result. So, I mean, that's, so far as I'm concerned, it's not any.
Yeah.
The PPP would like to see the back end of the PNC, of course. Why you think they've been punishing you for all these years and almost want to starve you out of it? Because they would like to see the PNC. But this here, I don't think it can be blamed on the PNC. What exists, when you say it's the PNC or APNU, it's a divided PNC or APNU went to the election. And that is how you have to analyze it. If you forget it and just call it the PNC, well, you will get any sort of a result, any interpretation you want.
Let's talk some practical politics, Henry, because there are lots of introspection, quarreling. You see it at the lower levels and so on, but I suspect even at the higher levels of the PNC on what the PNC should do. I've heard suggestions like the party needs to be rebuilt. Not a view that I share, because I don't think the party is broken, right? But the party needs to be rebuilt, and we need, the party needs this, and the party needs weigh in on that, because you have laid out the theory there that the party went to the election as a divided party.
Yes. Of course,
and so therefore it is not that some people said the party didn't do enough work. And the party didn't do this, and you need to go now and do work and so on.
No, it's nonsense.
Yeah.
And if you buy into the unitary party thing, you're going to say all this foolishness. But the party was not united. You got the 2 parties. Half of them have gone over to win by 3, nearly the last 4 weeks. And then the thing, what's her name become the deputy to Mohammed and all that, your WPA person. So effectively, the analysis must take into consideration that the PNC that ran for the election is not the total PNC. If you don't do it, you're just mischievous. You're just mischievous. It's not. The minute anybody come talking to me about that and they start saying the PNC, I say, which PNC? What is the PNC? What do you think Norton was? Yeah, he had the name of APNU and all of that, but that is it. You got to take the concrete reality into consideration. He was not the PNC designation alone. I can say I'm king, that don't make me king. It's the reality on the ground that makes me king. So therefore, North was half, if so much, of the PNC going out there, and the others being whispering against him all over the place. And they had their whisper campaign and all sort of organization. That is the real PNC, and that is what put Win in where it is. And thank the Lord, I'm not churchman. Thank the Lord, they put the PPP there.
It didn't put the PPP there. Dr. Henry Jeffrey here bringing a new lens to the politics, and that's what we try to do here. Try to open up the thing, because I like Jeffrey, I don't agree with that whole thing that the party needs to be rebuilt, and not to rebuild the party when he come in. In clearly, when the party was in power for that 5 years, they had neglected the party structures, and so Norton came in, and that's what he did. He increased the membership, increased party groups, etc., etc., etc. So this whole notion that the elections or the base was part of the basement away because the party was broken. I don't know. Anyway,
it was a struggle for power.
Yeah. Yes, struggle for power.
It was a simple as struggle for power in the PNC that allowed it to split. The oligarchs in the PNC determined that they must get their way. Even after you win an election in the membership, they are telling you, oh, I bring a man that is better than you. Yes, why is he better than me? He looks better than you. I mean, this is foolishness. It's stupidness. So that is essentially what happened there. So,
Jeffrey, the National Assembly is going to be convened next week. And of course, we now have 3 parties in the National Assembly. But you also have Forward Guyana Movement led by Amanza Walton Desir. And you have the WPA there, although it's part of the APNU delegation. From everything that the party has said, they see their role as a dual role, representing the WPA while being part of the APNU. So in effect, you have 2 small parties in the National Assembly. Given the winner-take-all system, given everything, we know that the National Assembly has really not been an institution that has been able to bring about any big change in the society. But tell us what, from your standpoint, what's the role of these quote-unquote small parties, 1 representative in the National Assembly? What should be their role in such a configuration?
Try to build Guyana into a democratic society. Right now, Guyana is an autocratic dictatorship. Story done. It's not Jeffrey says so. That is known. Guyanese, I believe Guyanese people of all sorts would like it to be a democratic society. But whether or not the PPP and the supporter, which mostly, as I said, 40% Indian, and so on, what you have got to do is to try to build Guyana into a democratic country and fit in with the Caribbean country. Guyana is the only one on the VDM index that is autocratic. There is an autocracy, a dictatorship. Even Suriname, well, not even Suriname. Suriname do a lot in terms of democratic and change to change that perception. Your job should be to attempt to say, what they are trying to sell you this as democracy. And they got people trying to sell you the notion that individual representative done after election day. They're trying to say after election they ain't gonna work as election representative. Yet all of us know that that same parliament, it has a first reading, second reading. First reading is just the reading to present. Second reading is there to discuss the principles, big principles, and quarrel about it. But the third, the committee stage is where all of us have to sit down and try to get the best policy for the country. Because if the PPP now must only get about 40-something% of the people that vote, or what, 50-something of those who actually voted, but or of the population as a whole. The truth is that if you're going to have laws have to be for substantially all of us. You can't get the 51% of you and say you're making law for everybody. And that's why even the Westminster type system has that committee stage. When now the government, all right, you have won the government, but that don't mean you're only part of the country. That's why you got a party. You're part, I'm another part. Regardless, you should, the committee stage is for you to sit there with us and let us forget the principle, because we quarreled about that at the second reading. We quarreled about the principle. But now is to put aside that and say, all right, how we can come up with something that's best for the country as a whole. And that is why Cherry Jagan said that a bill over 6 pages should not passed in the parliament without committee stage. I passed a whole bundle of bills, trade union record, domestic, but not domestic. Yes, all of those. And I had to go to committee stage for everyone. It's tedious because remember when you go down there now, the opposition saying that right there, that you gotta make changes, you gotta make compromises at that stage. And I think you chaps, when they're coming with this 20-page bill, don't go to parliament if they don't have set up a committee. Don't go. You might be small, but let the people of the country know what democracy means. Just don't go. Anytime they come there and say, oh, we got this big bill and we are going to pass it all one day. So I used to have to spend weeks, maybe months. Indeed, in terms of the trade union recognition bill, I thought it would have never got anywhere. Desmond, right on almost the last day, I said, Henry, we're going to support you on this one. I thought I was going nowhere because they're going to raise a whole lot of objections and things. And he said, come, we're going to support you on this one. And that's how it passed in 1997, the last day. So you got a big job, your job. Remember, laws are not supposed to be made by 50% or 51%. Laws is for all, they are for all of us. They are supposed to be made by substantially all of us. And therefore we sit there, and after we quarrel about the principle you got and all that, we are saying, all right, you want a lot of, we see where we can go with this, and we compromise, much less constitutions. Indeed, during the American constitutional process, they were saying, I think in Hamilton or one, they say it must be unanimously agreed.
Yes.
Unanimously, not substantially all of us. And then they boil it down, come to this thing of substantially all of us. God, you might never get unanimity. Right. So when they come in now with 40% vote and Tories, tell you, that's the end of you. You have been voted by the people as already decided. Now, particularly in an ethnic society like Guyana, 90% of the PPP vote are Indian. So once they vote, it's the end of everybody else.
Yes. Dr. Henry Jeffrey.
It's just foolishness. And it sit down there, people are just taking this.
Good evening to you, Julie. Julie Blair, who's watching from South Carolina, the old deep South Carolina. Yeah. Good evening to you, Julie. Those of you who are watching us from Mocha seem to be a lot in the house tonight. Trying to come to Mocha on, I think there is going to be a visit there over the weekend. I'm hoping to come to Mocha and to as part of a delegation there to meet the people of Mocha on the weekend. I think it's going to be Saturday. Don't quote me on it. But I know it's one day on the weekend. So we'll be in Mocha on the weekend. Jeffrey, we can't go without touching on this thing where, certainly from my standpoint, the Justice Cummins, the former acting Chancellor of the Judiciary, was pushed out. And we now have a new acting leader of the acting Chief Justice and a new acting Chancellor. And after refusing all these years to regularize the position, the PPP is now asking Aubrey Norton to put a signature to regularize these two nominees, these two acting officers, Roxanne George as Chancellor and Navindra Singh as Chief Justice. Should Norton give his assent?
No. First of all, you got politics got levels of morality. Norton stopped being the leader of the opposition, regardless of what the or finally and the Americans want. Yeah, from the day it's finished, maybe not legally as we know. If there was something dangerous, for instance, if we had to sign something so that Guyana, stop some bombing in Guyana, I will say yeah, or something dangerous. But it's not dangerous because they've been messing around with this for the longest while. Effectively, as you say, and therefore he should actually say no. He said clearly, I have because he gave them the opportunity. Well, let me put the story like this. For years, you see, that's what they're saying is what Cummings did in 2020 that caused a problem. But they have been doing this for years, long before 2020. The PPP don't want two Africans in that position. Story done. They didn't want it. That is the end game right there. It ain't got nothing to do with what she did in 2020. They had long before that. It's nearly 20 years that this is going on. So effectively, what has happened there, the PPP has orchestrated, but then what did you do when you're in government? You see, they always got to come back to you were in government and you had the opportunity too. But remember, you had to get the agreement of the PPP.
Of the PPP.
And you didn't want to put it to the PPP, largely because the PPP would have said no and present their candidates. And if you didn't take their Indian candidates, people would say you're racist.
Yeah.
So you didn't move on it, not because you loved them or not love them, but because you don't want to be labeled a racist, because the people would have bring an Indian judge and say, or two, whatsoever, because they like that, they're going to say, hey, these are our representatives. You don't want them to. Because you know, you got the same perceptions of what would happen. So effectively, you didn't do anything. And so today, what we are in, it's again, you need to fix the Constitution. I was going to go on and tell you those sort of things. But you need you need constitutional reform badly. You should take away the census from the government. The census shouldn't be no thing, no Ministry of Finance no more. How you go to election without a census? Oh, knowing how many people from away the country. You got elected, the census and these things shouldn't, given the nature of Ghana, this is not a homogeneous society. Given the nature of Ghana, the census shouldn't come under the government because they're doing all sorts of things not to put it out there. Things like the information, well, apparently information commissioner write a thing that he can't get knocked off. And no information is given to anybody. All these things come in to make you an autocratic government, an autocracy. But the people don't care if it's an autocracy, just want to hold on to power. That's it.
That's one to hold on to power. Dr. Henry Jeffrey here tonight weighing in on a number of issues. We start, of course, with regional / hemispheric and global politics, and then we moved in to our politics. Some new ways of looking at old things and some more nuanced eyes on some of the things that we have been looking at, sometimes simplistically. Dr. Jeffrey, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much, David. See you in 2 weeks.
See you in 2 weeks.
Bye-bye.
Dr. Henry Jeffrey here tonight. Always fun chatting with Dr. Jeffrey. One of my friends, was saying, when you're interviewing certain people, you need people. Oh, my friend Torquay was saying that. You need people who know the story because you're interviewing people who know the story. And if you don't know the story, then the interview can be effective. Always, since I start doing interviews on TV and radio, boy, 30 years ago, I think I started, I think in 1995. I, started doing TV interviews. So it's 30 years now. And one of the things I always like is to make sure that I know the issues, and when you're doing a good interview, because you're interviewing people who know the issues and you are au fait with the interviews. I remember interviewing Edward Siaga, and we got to Barbados and asked to do an interview, and he granted the interview. And after the first 10 minutes of the interview, he stopped the interview, the cameraman and so on, to stop. And he got up and he he said to his secretary, ask her why didn't she tell him that he was coming to do a real interview. And he got up, went into his offices, and came out with a stack of documents and papers and give me. And he said, you can continue the interview now. And we were supposed to have interviewed him for 1 hour. We ended up interviewing him for 2 hours. Largely because he recognized in the first 10 minutes of the interview that I had done my homework. I knew Jamaican politics. I knew Jamaican political history. I knew his political history. And he wasn't prepared for that. In the end, like I said, we had a wonderful interview. So when I interview people like Jeffrey and some of the guests that I bring on here, I enjoy it because I know that I'm interviewing people who know the issues. And after years of doing it, I myself have au fait and somewhat au fait with a lot of the issues. And a lot of you share that view that our program try to teach. Thank you all. So many people the other day wrote me to say that I think early in this week we were talking about some Caribbean politics, and to say, was it last night? I can't remember, or the night before, when we were talking about Barbados seceding from the British and this Barbados having the second oldest parliament in the world. So many people said to continue to bring that kind of information, because it's not very often one gets to dig into that kind of thing. I thank you all so much for having us. Tomorrow night we're going to have Vincent Alexander. We haven't talked about what's happening in GCOM. As you know, GCOM has now stopped. The chair has stopped GCOM from functioning because she feels that the composition of GCOM is not in order. And there's been a lot of exchanges between herself and the 3 commissioners nominated by the previous opposition leader. Vincent Alexander is going to be here tomorrow night. And we, of course, when Vincent comes, he comes armed with a lot of information. I think that's Vincent's forte. Big on analysis too, but he backs his analysis with the actual facts. I want to thank you all for staying with us tonight as we dug into some of these issues. Good evening to my friend John C. Paul. Good evening to all of you who have joined us tonight. We made it through half the week without any interruption. Tomorrow night, I know we're going to make it through. And then Friday night, we are going to have a big cast. Good evening to my elder friend, Ornis Elliott, former member of parliament for the People's National Congress, now retired. But I always say, as a WPA man, when we got into the coalition, and you got to now go to Congress Place, and you got there, and it's a strange place. And I remember Ornis being one of the persons that made us feel at home. People like Ornis and Corbyn, I'm talking about Robert Corbyn, and some of the others, made us feel at home, because you're talking about two old warriors in terms of the WPA and the PNC, and so you had to thaw the ice and so on. And Ornis was very instrumental, certainly for me, in terms of making you feel. Think now them PNC riders want to chase me out of Congress Place because they say when I go there, me and the ladies at Congress Place is too much friend. So me friend, my PNC friends, one of them from Boston who shall be nameless, that's them he gonna put me out of Congress Place, becoming too frenzy with Congress Place people. But politics are like that. So tomorrow night, Vincent Alexander is going to be here. Those of you who still want to enroll for the Introduction to Pan-Africanism course, which begins on Saturday we're going to be on from 4 to 6. It's an online course, introduction. We still have some vacant seats. Please call the number on the screen and enroll. They're charging an enrollment fee, but if you don't have the fee, by God, please indicate that to the person that you will be speaking with and tell them you don't got the fee, but you want to do the course. And I have left some instructions with them that the registration fee should not be a deterrence for somebody participating in the course. The information is at the bottom of the screen. So I'll see you all tomorrow night. And as I said, I'll be coming to Moko on Saturday. On Saturday, the APNU/PNC is having a kind of listening tour of Moko. A pleasant good evening to Sister Nemo Flubes, who was probably the hardest working political activist in Guyana, period. Not just PNC or APNU, but in Guyana. Hardest working, very conscientious, and so on. Thank you very much. I'd like to say thanks to the staff at Parliament Buildings, who I've been for the last couple of days interacting with, mostly on the phone, well, not mostly, on the phone. Very pleasant staff there, and I'm all the way up in Buxton, and you all know the story on the road and traffic and so on thing. They were able to drop my documents and other formal stuff that I need here at Buxton, and I want to say thanks to the drivers and the clerks, the clerk who came with the driver and so forth, coming up to Buxton and making sure that I get my stuff. Also want to say a big shout out to the PR team of APNU, also recognizing that I don't want to go to town these days, man, in the traffic too much, but they came up today to shoot a video with me, and I want to say thanks, because they got to deal with the traffic. But they were gracious enough to say, Dr. Hines, if you don't want to come down to town, we are going to come there. Drayton and Josiah and Tara, I want to thank you all for coming up to Buxton today and braving the traffic and saving the old man from from having to hit the road. Not only the traffic is bad and so on, but the while driving, I just can't take it these days. I just can't take it at all. So I want to thank the staff of the Parliament Buildings and thank the PR staff of APNU for coming up to Buxton. And it's good to come up to the country. It's good to do those things. Get out of tongue. Everything is tongue. It's good that people come out into the countryside. You get a chance to see country people in their natural habitat and so forth. And they don't play, because as soon as the people left, the pastor, see the official people come. I hope it's Parliament. Mr. Hines, I see they come. I hope it's Parliament. Oh boy, they don't play. You don't see them, but they're watching. They're watching. Thank you all, my fellow Buxtonians, especially those here at the line top who have assigned themselves my security detail. They don't miss anything. They don't miss anything. Thank you all so much. I am going to see you all tomorrow night. Same time, same place.